revelation from where I sit, because clearly she was trying to put huge pressure on my bosses to take action against me.
I will say that, like a lot of people, I saw the Getty images of the pillow dropping behind the skirt, and I thought at first they could be photoshopped, but Getty images is very reliable.
Piers Morgan has made a career out of being the loudest voice in the room, often relying on outrage to get views. But recently, the tone has shifted. The shouting has been replaced by a smug, dangerous confidence. He isn't acting like a man who is speculating anymore. He is acting like a man who has seen a file. When he dropped the hint about fresh evidence regarding Meghan Markle's pregnancy, the silence that followed from Montecito was deafening. Usually, when a claim this wild is made, legal teams are dispatched within the hour. Cease and desist letters fly. But this time, silence. And that silence tells a story all on its own. It suggests that Piers didn't just hear a rumor in a pub. It suggests he might have found the one thing that can destroy a narrative built over 5 years, a paper trail. We are no longer talking about gossip. We are talking about the potential exposure of a deception so vast, so calculated, and so risky that it would make every other royal scandal look like a minor misunderstanding. The focus has shifted from did she or didn't she to who has the receipts. To understand how deep this rabbit hole goes, we have to look away from the glitz of Hollywood and the grandeur of Buckingham Palace. The key to this mystery allegedly lies in a dusty, unassuming industrial park in the San Fernando Valley. This is the home of the special effects industry, the wizards who build the impossible for blockbuster movies. It is here, in a shop known for hyper-realistic prosthetics, that the timeline allegedly begins. This wasn't a party store. You don't walk into this place to buy a cheap plastic belly for a costume party. This shop specializes in medical-grade silicone appliances. These are pieces designed to fool high-definition cameras, crafted to mimic the texture of human skin, the weight of water retention, and even the movement of a baby kicking. The allegation is specific. A commission was placed not for a movie character, but for a private client. The specs were exact. The measurements were personal. And the delivery address was uncomfortably close to the royal couple's circle. For years, people who questioned the pregnancy were labeled as trolls or conspiracy theorists. They were dismissed for using the term moonbump. But when you look at the technology available in that shop, the theory stops sounding crazy and starts sounding technical. A high-end prosthetic isn't just strapped on like a backpack. It is glued to the skin with medical adhesive. It is blended with makeup. It warms to body temperature, but even the best Hollywood magic has flaws. There have been whispers about a specific malfunction, a popping sound heard during a public walkabout. At the time, the press ignored it. But those familiar with silicone prosthetics know that sound. It's the sound of an air pocket trapped between the prosthetic and the skin releasing as the wearer moves. If Piers Morgan has evidence linking Meghan to this shop, then that pop wasn't a random noise. It was the sound of the illusion cracking in real time. If we are going to look at evidence, we have to talk about the video that started it all, the squat. It was an engagement at an animal shelter. Meghan, allegedly heavily pregnant in her 3rd trimester, did something that made mothers around the world gasp. She squatted down to pet a dog. But she didn't just squat. She dropped down in 5-inch stiletto heels, kept her knees completely together, and popped back up without assistance. Ask any woman who has carried a baby to full term. The center of gravity shifts, the ligaments loosen, the belly physically prevents the knees from closing that tightly. Physically, biologically, that movement is nearly impossible for a woman carrying 7 pounds of baby in fluid. But for a woman wearing a 5-pound foam and silicone attachment, it's easy. This was the first glitch in the matrix. The moment where the performance didn't match the biology. The suspicion grew because the bump didn't seem to follow the laws of nature. In a real pregnancy, growth is gradual. But internet sleuths began archiving photos from the same week, sometimes even the same day, showing vastly different sizes. In the morning, the bump appeared high and round. By the afternoon, it looked lower and flatter. In some photos taken from the side, the bump seemed to collapse inward when she sat down, folding in a way that solid flesh simply cannot do. Piers Morgan's fresh evidence likely targets these inconsistencies. If a receipt exists, it wouldn't just be for one belly. It would be for a 3-month, a 6-month, and a 9-month prosthetic. The allegation is that on the days the size fluctuated, there was a mix-up in the wardrobe department. Someone grabbed the wrong size for the morning event. It sounds almost comedic, like a sitcom plot, until you remember the stakes involving the British crown. This is where the story turns from a celebrity scandal into a constitutional crisis. Why fake it? Why not just use a surrogate openly? The answer lies in a dusty old law from the 1600s known as the born of the body rule. The British monarchy is an ancient institution, and its rules are rigid. To be in the line of succession, to be a prince, a duke, or a king, the child must be born of the body of the wife. Adoption doesn't count. Surrogacy doesn't count. If Archie and Lilibet were born via surrogate, they are legally excluded from the royal line. They would not be eligible for titles. They would not be in the line for the throne. For a couple obsessed with their royal branding and the status of their children, a surrogate birth would be a disaster. It would strip their children of their birthright before they even took their first breath. This law provides the motive. It explains why they would risk everything to stage a pregnancy. They were fighting for their children's future titles. If the prosthetic theory holds water, it raises a question that is even more mysterious. Who is the real mother? If Meghan was wearing the bump, someone else had to be carrying the baby. This introduces the concept of the shadow carrier. In the world of high-end VIP surrogacy, confidentiality is the most expensive item on the invoice. We know that during the pregnancy, there were long periods where Meghan disappeared from the public eye. Was this to coordinate with the surrogate? Reports have surfaced of ironclad NDAs signed by medical staff in secretive locations. If Piers Morgan's trail is real, it might not just lead to a costume shop. It might lead to a fertility clinic that specializes in discretion. The existence of a surrogate would be the final puzzle piece, proving that while the DNA might be theirs, the pregnancy was a carefully managed logistical operation. We cannot tell this story without looking at Prince Harry. He is the tragic figure in this Shakespearean drama. There is no version of this story where he comes out clean. If the belly was fake, he lived with it. He touched it. He talked to it in interviews. This means one of two disturbing things happen. Scenario A. He is the mastermind. He knew the royal rules would exclude his kids, so he plotted with Meghan to fool his grandmother, the Queen, and the entire British public. This makes him a traitor to his family. Scenario B. He was gaslighted. It sounds impossible, but in abusive or highly manipulative relationships, partners can be convinced of insane things. Was he kept at a distance? Was he told it was medically necessary to wear padding for protection? It seems unlikely, but if Harry didn't know, then the betrayal he suffered is unimaginable. However, the most likely reality is that he was a willing participant, believing they were modernizing the monarchy by breaking its archaic rules, not realizing that lies have a way of rotting the foundation they stand on. Here is a theory that explains why the palace has never sued, never commented, and never fought back against Harry's attacks. What if they already know? The British intelligence services MI5 and MI6 vet everyone who enters the royal orbit. It is impossible to believe that a surrogate birth could be hidden from the Queen's private security detail. The theory is that the palace has the receipts too. They know the truth about the birth, and they are holding it as Kompromat leverage. They let Harry and Meghan keep their titles, they let them have their Netflix deals, but the moment the couple goes too far, the palace can simply leak the medical records. This creates a tense stalemate. Piers Morgan might just be the wild card that ruins the palace's strategy by releasing the truth before the king is ready to use it. Let's look at the money. Harry and Meghan are not just people, they are a corporation. They signed deals with Netflix and Spotify worth over $100 million. Those deals were purchased based on their status as royals, as the Duke and Duchess. Their children's titles, Prince and Princess, are currently being used to bolster their brand in America. If it is proven that the children were born via surrogate and the pregnancy was faked, the titles could be stripped legally. The authenticity they sell becomes fraud. You can't sell a memoir about finding your voice if your entry into motherhood was a lie. The lawsuits from production companies alone would be catastrophic. They would be sued for misrepresentation. The house of cards they built in Montecito is held together by the public's belief in their story. Take that away, and the cash flow stops overnight. You might wonder, if this is so obvious, why isn't CNN or the BBC reporting it? The answer is fear. In the UK, privacy laws are incredibly strict. Accusing a woman of faking a pregnancy is a legal minefield. If the media gets it wrong, they could be sued into bankruptcy for defamation and emotional distress. That is why Piers Morgan is so dangerous. He doesn't care. He has been fired before. He has been sued before. He operates outside the polite fear that silences other journalists. He is using suggestive language to skirt the laws, planting the seeds so that the public does the investigation. The mainstream media is terrified of the story, but the independent investigators are closing in. The dam is cracking, and the big networks are just waiting for one undeniable piece of proof before they join the flood. History tells us one thing: you cannot keep a secret that involves more than two people. Eventually, someone talks. The shopkeeper who made the prosthetic has friends. The surrogate who carried the child has a family. The assistants who saw the bump sitting on a chair in the dressing room have memories. Piers Morgan's claim of fresh evidence is likely just the first tremor of the earthquake. We are moving toward a moment of absolute clarity. Either Meghan provides the medical records to shut down the rumors forever, or the receipt from the Valley workshop finds its way onto the internet. The story of the prosthetic belly is no longer a whisper in the dark corners of the web. It is a headline waiting to be written. And when it is finally printed, the world will realize that the greatest performance of Meghan's acting career didn't happen on a soundstage in Toronto. It happened on the balcony of Buckingham Palace. The lights aren't dimming, they are getting brighter. And if Piers Morgan really has the evidence he hinted at, the story has only just begun.